Well, this is our last video for our 8 enduring principles of learning. And for this video, we're going to focus on principle 7, which is modeling learning through observation. All right, let me show my screen to you so that we can look closely at what um, this principle says and what we're supposed to be looking at. Okay, modeling. Modeling learning through observation. This allows students to develop competence before requiring them to perform. So at the enacting level, then, the teacher provides a model of a completed product that the students then make, or models the behaviors, thinking processes, or procedures necessary for the task, and assists students to practice before they do it on their own. I definitely try to do this very, very, very regularly in my teaching, even with teaching online, so that students have a good idea of what they're going for. The one thing that sometimes can be a little confusing for teachers, I run into this myself, is sometimes when I'm modeling something, then of course it makes sense that the students are thinking, well, I'm going to create the very same thing. And a lot of times that's exactly what the teacher wants. If you're learning a particular skill, like how to throw a football well, there you can't put really your own variation on that too much, because there's a particular way that you do it to get it to spiral in the air. So there's some things that you don't want any variation from. Remember how we talked about what's the difference between training, schooling, and education, and each of those is greater and greater degrees of generalization where you have to apply it in many different circumstances. And that happens with modeling too. Sometimes I want a end of the unit example or project or product that I want students to create, and I will model the thinking process that I go through, but I'm really looking for students to apply their higher order thinking skills and create something different. So sometimes what happens is if I create a product, then the students create the very same product. And so sometimes examples can be limiting that way, where if I created something, then I get 25 more of the very same thing. And sometimes, as I said, that is what you want. But other times, like if you've been working on a skill and now you want them to show you that they know how to do it, you want them to think through the process, but you want them to put their own imagination and creativity in it. So a lot of times modeling happens when you are teaching students about something that's kind of new to them. You're helping them to develop the competencies, the knowledge, the dispositions, the vocabulary, the ways of thinking about it so that they become more expert in it. And you model it to try to help them and show them. And this is just no matter if learners are adults or children, this is very helpful. They watch you do it, you do something with them and guide and support and scaffold it, and then you allow them to do it on their own while you're watching. And then that way you can see and diagnose kind of where the misunderstandings might be happening, and then you can use your instructional conversation to guide them toward that, so that the next try they will be able to do it effectively by themselves. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these at maybe a video or so of a teacher modeling for us. Okay, now this teacher is going to explain to us a little bit about modeling.
The purpose of modeling is to provide students with a clear understanding of the expectation for their learning.
It is when teachers provide the example of learning.
It shows them what the competency looks like. We're talking about the teacher providing a conceptually grounded example. Modeling in the teaching context is leading by example, and good teachers do this every day. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay.
See how the teacher was showing them exactly what to do? And those are young children. And sometimes what you do as you're modeling it is you're thinking aloud. How did you arrive at that process? So that teacher was counting them because she had told them earlier that they need a certain number of chips. And so she's counting with them to help them to know when they have arrived at the exact number of chips. So developmentally, that is very appropriate for the young children. Now, older children and adult learners also benefit greatly from modeling.
This one is the one that I wrote, x over 90. I'm going to start off with a rectangular prism.
So that I can see that you can do it on your own.
We have 6 beads on our counting loop. Mrs. Carney's going to show you something very, very tricky. Do you think you can handle it? Today we worked on a math lesson, and what I did was I did the activity first. I took the counting loop and I showed them what they would be doing later on their own. What I do when I'm trying to come up with all the combinations of a number is I start with 0 and that number first. And then what?
You see how she was doing a think aloud there? She was helping the children to understand how she arrived at the correct answer there. She was sharing her logic of how she's done that. And I have seen that done very effectively in high school as well. When I was documenting the practices of exemplary Black teachers in Lower Alabama, they were working with a lot of learners who were coming from, communities where not a lot of people had access to quality education. And a lot of people did not understand or know how to help their children to get to college. The students would want to do things like they would say, I want to be an attorney. I want to be a doctor, but they had no idea how to connect the dot from high school to eventually having a career in law or medicine. And so these teachers, they would do think alouds, and they would say things like, I know when I was your age and I was confused about it, I didn't know how to do this. And so this is what I did. And they kind of show the path forward of how you can get from A to B. And that was very effective for the learners, because sometimes if you see somebody who's expert at doing something and you are a novice, and especially if you never thought about yourself as doing that, then you just think, well, that's too hard for me. The zone of proximal development is far too great. And they give up before they even try. And so I know for myself, that was certainly the case. I was working on my first master's degree, and the reason that I got into graduate school was not because I thought I was very capable or very bright, but because I was a classroom teacher. And I was working with Latinx students, with Asian descent students, with students from all over the world, and many of them were, they in their communities were working against a lot of the issues that are associated with poverty through no fault of their own, and a lot of discrimination in society. And so I didn't feel like my teacher education had prepared me to be the best teacher that I could be for my students. And so I was looking for answers, and I started going to all these different workshops, and I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I knew what I wasn't looking for. And even at that time, even though I couldn't put words to it, I did know that I wasn't looking for a magic bullet strategy. I knew even then that you had to start with the learners. So I knew that strategies were just going to be in my toolbox, but I'm just throwing them in the dark at the wall. And let me try this tool, let me try that tool. But if you don't know the learners, then you don't know which tool it is. So if I know my learners, then I can pull out the right tool and I can help them because I know where I'm trying to go. I'm trying to raise high levels of accountability, high levels of criticality, high levels of cultural competence. So I know where I'm going now. You have to get the tools to help these particular learners go that way. That's my job as a teacher. So I went to my first master's degree looking for answers like that. And having come from a very working class, economically poor community where neither of my parents had graduated from high school, I had already graduated from high school and I had already graduated from college the first time and had a bachelor's degree. So I had already had surpassed many people in my community as far as their academic levels. But I had no sense of possibility for me for graduate school. I already had a teaching degree. I saw myself doing that as for 30 years, and that was my ceiling. But when I went looking for answers and I found myself in a graduate program searching and hungry to learn, I had a professor who would model for me and would do talk alouds, and he would say things like, this master's thesis is really creative, really insightful. I could see you using this as a preliminary study for a dissertation. And like a lot of women and a lot of people from working class communities, I immediately put myself down. I didn't know that I had kind of picked up those habits and been socialized that way. So my knee-jerk response was, well, I'll never pass the GRE, the test that you need to get into graduate school. And he never accepted my excuses. He would say, well, so take it again, because I had said I probably wouldn't pass. He's like, well, take it again. So any kind of excuse I put up there for not doing that, he would just be very nonchalant about it and just like, do it again. If you didn't pass, do it again, study, do it again. And so he didn't accept less than my best from me. So he was really demonstrating criticality, where he was looking at, well, a lot of times women will do that. They're not very good always at negotiating for themselves. We're kind of socialized from very young to be very passive, to not really advocate for ourselves, lest we be seen as too aggressive. I never really saw myself in graduate school, and certainly never as somebody with a PhD, because I didn't know anybody with PhDs. And so he opened that door aloud for me, where he was thinking and talking aloud, and he had high expectations for me. And then when I didn't rise to them, he would gently but firmly kind of give me feedback. Like one time he said, well, I know this isn't your best work here. And it wasn't. I was trying to slide by. I was teaching school during the day, and then I had young children at home. I was very involved in registering Latinx people in my community to vote, and teaching them about their rights as citizens, of what they human rights that they had in this country, whether they were documented or not. So I was like super busy, and I came to my class and he was like, this is not your best work. And it wasn't. And so I took that and I internalized that, and I was like, I'm going to do my best work. And he would say things like, because I had a baby during my first year of my first master's degree and a baby during my second year of my master's degree. They're 14 months apart. And he would say, I've heard of burning the candle at both ends, but this is ridiculous. And he wasn't, commenting about like what I should or shouldn't do with my family. He was just saying, you need to focus and you have a lot of distractions. So you're going to have to handle this or not. And so I did. I really buckled down, and I made a point to always submit my best. And when I wasn't submitting my best, he told me so. So because I didn't really have the background or the knowledge of what that level was, because I didn't know people who went to college. I didn't know anybody in my family or my community who had been in graduate school. So this was all new to me. And my teacher's modeling is what opened the door. His talk alouds, his sharing his rationale, his instructional conversations with me opened that door for me, where I found that, he sparked my interest, but then he also said, you're very good at doing theory. And a lot of people are afraid of theory. And so he saw gifts in me and encouraged those. And where I would fall short or was a little lazy, he would encourage and give me feedback and be firm with me that the bar is up here. So he was really addressing that criticality of me being not only female, but also that I had come from a very working class background. So modeling is just important at so many levels, and we want to have it in our teaching a lot. Okay, so let's look at just one more little clip and then we'll wrap this video up. Okay, here's a teacher in a science class.
Guys, so let's recap from yesterday. So we have a picture of a hurricane, which is another form of a natural disaster, right? And we have another picture of some nutritional health bars, right? Raise your hand if you can tell me, what do those two things have in common with what we're going to be doing for the next 8 days in science class? What do those two things have in common with what we're going to be doing and studying in science for the next 8 days? I have 3 hands raised. I have 4 hands raised, 5, 6, 7. Hands down, I was tracking Zoe in the back.
I think those two things really common is how we're going to, I think she said like design something or like how to make it and use, it was something, but she said we're gonna be designing it or making it. So I think that it has to do with a natural disaster like a tornado or a hurricane.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
I get what you're saying. Who could help out just a little bit? What does this picture of a natural disaster and these health bars have in common? Who can make the
Okay, now, did you notice how there's two things that stand out to me right away from this video clip? First of all, he did something that I often don't see my student teachers do. And this is a big help to you as a teacher. It will minimize the classroom management issues that you have if you do what he did. Did you notice that over here on his screen, he's got a picture of a hurricane, and then he's got a picture of I think they're granola bars. So granola bars and a hurricane, and he's piqued their interest. Even me as someone watching the video, he's grabbed my attention. He's got an anticipatory set here where he grabbed my attention, and he certainly has the learner's attention too, because you got these two like apparently odd things together. It's like, how do they go together? So do you see how important that is? It's an anticipatory set because now what he did was he sparked our interest. He's got us trained in and focused. Our mind is on him. We're already problem solving. We're like, what is the possible connection there? And then the second thing that stands out really well here, and a lot of teachers don't do this well, even teachers who are very experienced. Did you notice how much wait time he had? He did not push that student or rush her when she didn't immediately articulate her words. So sometimes students have trouble, and even some of us that are who are teachers, we don't process quite as quickly as other people do. And so we need a minute, right? And so his wait time was excellent. He was very respectful of her, and he really waited. And then he very respectfully transitioned to have someone else help with fleshing that answer out. And notice how he said all eyes trained on Zoe. So everyone was supposed to be intentionally listening, not just hearing, but actually listening to what Zoe was saying. So that was a really big thing there that I noticed. I'm going to skip forward here. He's reviewing, which is also a very good thing. So you have your anticipatory set, and he reviews what they had done the day before. Okay, let's see. Back that up just a little bit so you can hear him give the instructions there.
Have like certain things that happen to you.
Yeah, right? So remember our 3 criteria that our health board is gonna have to have. Raise your hand if you can recap what those 3 criteria are, or at least give me one. Give me one some more.
Taste.
Taste is one. Give me another, Isaiah. Low cost. It can't be expensive because we have to feed a large amount of people with this health bar, right? And my third one, yes.
The right amount of fiber.
Yeah, the right amount of nutritional ingredients, right? To make it as healthy as.
Now, do you notice here? I haven't seen modeling yet here, have you? But I have seen principle 4, challenging activities. Look at how he's also contextualizing, which is principle 3. So they're talking about a big issue, like how to respond to what people need during a natural disaster. And so the scale of thinking that you have to do to get enough granola bars to people. So they're trying to calculate, how much you can get a single granola bar, and how much energy will each person get and nutritional value for that. Because during a natural disaster, you don't have a lot of resources to healthy foods and a lot of it. And so see how they're doing some complex thinking here. They aren't just simply filling in a worksheet. And then it's contextualized in the sense that he links it to what they eat and what they do. And the learners are very familiar with granola bars. So this is part of a lesson that has previous lessons as well, and they're building toward a accumulating project where they're going to actually be making and sharing these granola bars. So far we haven't seen him do any modeling. He's doing a lot of instructional conversation where he's leading them with his talk and his questions. Later on, they're annotating this.
Because they know what we're looking for.
we're gonna look over the questions first. So that way, we know exactly what it is that we're looking for in the text, right? So flip to the next page. The questions look like this, you guys. I believe it's numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is kind of on the back. Take 30 seconds to silently and independently look over these questions. As Zamora's eyes down on her paper looking over her question.
Notice he didn't say, I like how Zamora's eyes are down her on her paper. He just mentioned it. He just mentioned that that's the correct behavior. So I know I learned to say that. I like how you are sitting quietly. And I have really had to work hard to get that out of my vocabulary. And he doesn't have that in his vocabulary. The only thing that I noticed that he does do, and a lot of teachers do this, is that he calls the whole class guys. He goes, okay, guys, are you ready, guys? And so I try really hard to stay away from that because, you know, it suggests that everybody in the room might identify as male, and they probably don't. Right. So just being precise with you remember how powerful our language is. Language just doesn't describe things, but it actually creates our world around us, particularly depending on who's speaking. When the teacher is speaking, the teacher's words carry a lot of weight. And so you know, it matters what teachers say, even when they're just offhand saying things. So you can see that he is modeling here. He shows the students where to look, excuse me, on the paper, and then he gives them an opportunity to independently look over the questions that they're going to do. So he's modeling as he's going how to do that. They're going to be annotating something, and he wants them to know the process. So he's telling them that they're going to know what they're going to read for. So he's setting them up for success like that. Okay, so probably, excuse me, this model or this principle is probably the one we're the most familiar with. I have another video, but I don't think I'm going to show it to you. I might not have it open. Nope. And the teacher just gives the students some materials for a science project, and she doesn't model for them or set them up for success about what they're supposed to do with these materials that are on their desk. And so she has a lot of chaos happening because she didn't model for them. So they don't know what the materials are, what they're supposed to be doing. And so when you give students, whether they're in kindergarten or in high school, a bunch of things that they don't know what to do with or what the boundaries are for how to behave with those, excuse me, then you can have a real classroom management issue on your hands. So, and she did, because they didn't know what to do. They were supposed to do an assignment. Sometimes you want to do like discovery learning and let them discover how those things go together, but she didn't set that up like that. So you definitely need modeling. There's one of you as a teacher, and you know, oftentimes 25 to 30 to 40 of the learners, and so you need to be very clear on what you want them to do. And modeling is like, not everyone learns super well just through hearing it. I know I don't. If I can see you doing it, that's going to help me, because not only is my auditory involved, but my eyes are involved too. And pretty soon, when you get my hands and body involved, then I'm really going to start learning. So if it's just what I have to listen to, sometimes I will tune out, not intentionally, but I will. Something else will catch my attention or whatever. So I'm not the best learner just through auditory. And so modeling will help students like me to be able to follow what you're doing. Okay. All righty. Well, thank you for listening, and good luck with looking for modeling in your lessons.